So Hans with black here. After c4, the English opening, he goes in for knight f6. Now I'm going to whiz through these opening moves here. We see both players fianchettoing their bishops into the corner of the board, and Hans, he's going for this King's Indian setup, aggressive, looking to win. Now we see white play pawn e3, not the more usual kind of pawn e4, although when you fianchettoed, well, there's a nice idea, you keep the diagonal open. And now e5 from Hans, the classic move, strikes at the centre. We see this knight developing, not blocking the bishop, whoops, that one, leaving the way for the f-pawn maybe one day. Knight c6 now from Hans, and the centre is closed. And he already goes his own way here. You know, he's a really interesting player. So instead of going knight e7, the classic kind of remaneuver, he goes knight a5. Idea being, will you provoke b3 and weaken this diagonal? Now we see the pawn kick on to c5, and don't worry too much about these orange question marks. You'll also see some double red question marks if it's a bigger blunder. There's a red cross if it's a miss, so it's just where you haven't played quite the most accurate move. Now why does the computer not love this? Well, after captures, however you recapture that pawn, Hans goes with his pawn, well, you've helped white really open this bishop. That's the problem with that idea from a positional perspective. So bishop a3 now played, immediately targeting that backwards pawn. Now knight e8 covers, and after castles, Hans plays a blunder of queen c7. There's actually a very nice tactic in the air that both players missed here. Not easy to see, but do feel free to have a look if you want to try and find it. White plays queen d2, but the move they could have played to find a pawn was knight to b5. Really nice idea. That whole diagonal opening is coming back to bite you. You've now lost a rook if you capture the knight. And if you don't capture the knight, say you move your queen, you know, to b8 or b6 or whatever, well, the pawn's just caving in. There's 3 attackers, 2 defenders. White's a long way ahead. So that would have been really a killer. But queen d2 played. It's missed. Now bishop e6. The rook comes to the c-file, knight b7 drops back, covers this pawn, and now rook fd1 brings pressure, and rook c8 played by Hans. Now white here finds a nice tactic, to be fair to them, of knight d5. This knight cannot be captured, otherwise the pawn takes, you open the rook, and after the queen moves, something like this, well, the black pawn structure's a mess. White's for choice here, doing really well, plus got the bishop pair. So coming back, we see queen d7 straight away. The knight's now forced to retreat backwards. It's got nothing better. And f5 from Hans. He looks for that counterplay, and white tries to shut down some of these ideas with pawn e4. Now it's committal, because you do block your own bishop, but in return for that, well, you block the black bishop here because this pawn is now stuck. So f4 was played by Hans, looking to threaten both pieces with a fork, pawn to f3. So we see f3 played by white, and now captures was played, pawn recaptures, and the queen just sidesteps to c7, looking to activate onto those dark squares potentially. Queen e3 covers, also hits the a7 pawn. Hans ignores, goes knight f6. Now if that one's captured, it's not actually best, because c5 can be played, shuts down the queen's return route, and it's now going to start getting chased. And you know, even if knight b5, there's queen c6, pawn stays covered, and these rooks are coming, you know, not much fun. So coming back here, instead from white we see knight a4. By the way, the computer doesn't love it because it wanted to start doubling rooks straight away. But this is blitz chess, they're low on time. Now there's an idea of pawn c5 here. So Hans goes c5 himself. The knight returns, looking at these weakened light squares here that are highlighted. a6 covers one, stops that knight from coming there, threatening the pawn even more. And now rook d3 prepares that doubling maneuver. h5 from Hans. I love this idea from him, really nice, because after rook c to d1, he goes king h7, looking to bring that bishop to a more powerful diagonal. It's completely shut down here, staring at the pawn. So bishop c1 preempts that, stops the move. Now queen f7 comes onto this open file. We see king h1 played. Sometimes the knight comes to g1, protects this square. Okay, very nice. And now knight d7 from Hans. Again, not the computer's top move. Let's ignore that one. This is a really nice knight remaneuver. And now white starts remaneuvering theirs into g1. By the way, the opponent here for Hans Niemann, sorry, forgot to mention, is Ehsan Ghaem Maghami, very experienced Iranian grandmaster. So coming back here, we see knight b8 heading for the d4 square, knight h3 played, and now that one gets chopped because the fork is threatened on the g5 square. So bishop takes, bishop recaptures, hits that rook, it dives away to the e-file here, and now white just goes wrong, starts remaneuvering in a bad way, very low on time. Something like the simple knight d5 was better, although I can understand why white wants to keep these rooks open. But this one was played. Hans comes here, and now knight g1. Why has this got the double question mark? Well, there was this nice move which Hans misses of knight b4. You know, he plays the obvious knight d4. Why is this good? Well, the rook is hit, and if it comes back to d2 to cover this pawn, then we finally get this bishop h6 move. You know, this connection here has been interrupted, and if the f4 pawn is pushed like this, well, then there's just too much pressure. That one's actually dropping. It's no good. So, coming back here, we didn't see knight b4 though. Knight d4 was played. That's why this is indicated as a miss. Now bishop g2, knight d8 back, and this is nice maneuvering. Finally, this knight doesn't have to keep with the pawn. This one's blocking the d-file. Now this knight comes to h3. The fork is threatened. This one covers. And now after f4, very committal move, we see a nice counter shot from Hans. First bishop h6, rook f1 covers the pressure, and pawn h4, looking to undermine this support of the pawn, and here white goes wrong. The best move was queen e1 to cover these threats, but a blunder is played of knight g5 check. Why is this bad? Well, we're about to see in just a moment. But first, a shout out to the awesome sponsors of this video, Brilliant.org, the #1 place to learn math and computer science. Now, if you've never checked it out, get over there now, create a free account and give it a go. Because if you're looking to improve your skills in the areas of computer science, logic, math, then there is no better place than Brilliant.org. They've got a constantly growing library of interactive courses you can use. Whatever your skill level, beginner, intermediate, advanced, there's something for everyone. And there's a constant stream of helpful hints and tools to keep you learning in a fun and interactive way for all ages. It's become a kind of daily addiction now because it helps in all aspects of your life. Really helps improve concentration, logical thinking, and improves the way you learn for the future. To try everything Brilliant has to offer, free for a full 30 days, head on over to brilliant.org/epicchess, and the first 200 of you to sign up will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Now back to this game here. So what was played here? Well, the knight came to g5. Blunder, because the bishop can capture. After the pawn takes back, well, here we see the brilliant queen sack, uncorked, of queen takes on f1 with check. Brilliant move, and this is what I'm sure white overlooked, because after the bishop recaptures, the rook comes down, so you've already got rook and bishop. After the king moves, well, now this one supports, and there's huge threats in the air. So hard for the white pieces to get kind of coordinated, especially when you're about to get access to this square because this pawn's about to disappear. Now, it's a bit hard to improve these pieces really. So white thinks, okay, I'm taking here. I mean, they're under 10 seconds on the clock. But now Hans, he's got great tactical shots. Now, he doesn't actually find the best one. The top engine move here is knight c2, sometimes looking to then check from e1, but hard to see that kind of thing. Instead, Hans, he takes on c1, but this isn't the best. Now, the way white responds, it works out great, and it will have been what Hans was calculating. But if you don't capture the rook, and you instead take this knight, well, this is actually quite decent for white, because if you recapture that one hitting the queen, then we take here, and you've got knight and rook against the queen, and it's very imbalanced. You know, anything could happen here. And if instead of taking that rook, you save this one here, so say you slam this down, that's actually the best way for black to play, well then white takes here, and again you can see all the counterplay stuff going on. Who knows what's going on here? Pretty crazy. But instead of this rook capturing here, we see the queen take on c1. This now loses the game, because after knight f4 check, king h2, well, knight takes on d3 played, and it's -10 now. Huge advantage to black. The queen is hit, it saves itself, but now the rook comes in, check, and it's mate in 5. Now, king g3 put up the most resistance, but after king h3, well, we see check, the king goes, and bang, it's mate in 2. Crunching game from Hans Niemann, and the last time we saw him play. I hope you enjoyed this one. To see another exceptional game from him, then check out the video on screen. Thanks very much for watching, and see you soon.